October 3, 2009. Marcus Kane had been Hollywood's go-to stuntman for 23 years. He'd taken bullets, explosions, and falls that should have killed him, but he'd never expected his own producer to tie him to a tree as a joke. 12 hours in the Nevada desert, no water, no shade, temperature hitting 115 degrees. When Marcus was finally cut loose, 3 people were dead: the producer, the director's assistant, and a local sheriff's deputy who'd stumbled onto something he shouldn't have seen. Marcus took the blame, served 8 years, never said a word about what really happened that night, about who else was there, about the real reason those people died. The case became legend in Hollywood circles. The stuntman who snapped, the desert massacre that ended careers. But legends, like secrets, have a way of crawling back from the grave. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 15 years later, Marcus Kane's hands still trembled when he heard helicopters. The sound echoed across the Nevada wasteland now, rotors cutting through morning air like blades through bone. Marcus pressed his back against the weathered barn wall, Winchester clutched tight against his chest, and counted the seconds between heartbeats. 4 helicopters, maybe 5. Too many for a routine patrol. They'd found him. Blood seeped through the makeshift bandage wrapped around his left shoulder, where the first shot had caught him 20 minutes ago. The bullet had come through his kitchen window while he'd been reading the morning letter, the one that changed everything. The one that proved he wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid, wasn't the monster Hollywood had painted him to be. But someone didn't want that letter to see daylight. Marcus crouched lower as the helicopters swept past his property line, their searchlights carving geometric patterns across the scrubland. His ranch sprawled across 47 acres of nothing, Joshua trees, rattlesnakes, and memories he couldn't outrun. He'd bought it with blood money from his last stunt gig, back when Marcus Kane was still a name worth knowing, before the desert, before the trial. Before 8 years in a concrete box, listening to inmates whisper about the Hollywood stuntman who'd finally cracked. The radio in his pocket crackled. Sheriff's frequency. He shouldn't be listening, but old habits died hard. "Suspect is armed and extremely dangerous," a voice reported. "History of violence. Convicted of multiple homicide. Do not attempt to apprehend alone." Marcus almost laughed. 15 years of exile, 15 years of feeding cattle and fixing fences and keeping his head down, and they still saw him as the killer from the headlines. The monster who'd snapped under pressure and butchered 3 innocent people in a desert rage. If they only knew. The letter crinkled in his back pocket, 3 pages of confession from beyond the grave. Producer Jerry Hoffman had cancer, apparently, terminal. Guilt had eaten through him faster than chemotherapy, and in his final days he'd written everything down, every sordid detail of that October night. The real reason he'd tied Marcus to that tree, the game that had gone wrong, the cover-up that followed. But the letter wasn't the real prize. Hoffman had mentioned footage, video evidence that would clear Marcus's name and destroy another family entirely, a family he'd protected with his silence for 15 years. Another helicopter passed overhead, closer this time. Marcus glimpsed the sheriff's department logo painted on its belly. Sheriff Tom Brennan's operation, the same Brennan whose daughter Sarah had visited Marcus in prison exactly once, tears streaming down her face as she begged him to tell the truth about her brother Danny. The same Danny who'd been 18 and stupid and in the wrong place with the wrong friends on October 3, 2009. Marcus had looked into Sarah's blue eyes that day and lied, told her he didn't know what she was talking about, told her Danny was a good kid who'd made a mistake by coming to the desert that night, but nothing more. The relief on her face had been worth 8 years of concrete walls and steel bars. Now, 15 years later, someone wanted to make sure that lie became permanent. Marcus shifted position and pain flared through his shoulder. The wound wasn't fatal, but it was bleeding steady. He had maybe 2 hours before blood loss became a problem. 2 hours to decide whether Sarah Brennan's family was worth dying for. His radio crackled again. Found fresh blood by the house. Track leads toward the old mine shaft. Moving in, they were closing the net. Professional, methodical, thorough. This wasn't some panicked response to a domestic disturbance. Someone had orchestrated this hunt with military precision, someone with resources and patience and a very good reason to want Marcus Kane silenced forever. The helicopters circled back, searchlights probing every shadow. Marcus counted his options: fight, flee, or surrender. Fighting meant killing sheriff's deputies who were just doing their jobs. Fleeing meant running forever, assuming he lived long enough to run. Surrendering meant a bullet in the head before he reached the squad car. None of those options cleared his name. Marcus pulled out his cell phone, an ancient flip model that barely got signal out here, and scrolled to the one number he'd memorized but never called. Sarah Brennan Matthews now, married to a banker, 2 kids, living in Carson City where she taught 3rd grade and coached Little League, and probably never thought about the broken stuntman who'd taken a murder rap to protect her family. His thumb hovered over the call button. 15 years of silence. 15 years of protecting a secret that could destroy everything Sarah had built. But if Marcus died today, that secret died with him. The real killer would never face justice. The truth would stay buried in Nevada sand. The helicopters were getting louder. Time to choose. If this story has grabbed you by the throat like those desert winds, make sure you're following along. Tomorrow I'm revealing the phone call that changes everything, and trust me, you won't see it coming. Marcus pressed the call button. The phone rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered, slightly breathless. Hello? 15 years collapsed into nothing. Sarah's voice still carried that slight rasp she'd developed from cheering too loud at high school football games, back when the world made sense and Marcus Kane was just the crazy stuntman who taught her how to fall off horses without breaking bones. Sarah. The name felt strange on his tongue after so many years of silence. It's Marcus. A pause. Kitchen sounds in the background, dishes clattering, children's laughter. Normal sounds from a normal life he'd helped preserve. Marcus Kane. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Oh my God. Where are you? Still in Nevada. Listen, I don't have much time. There are things you need to know about Danny. About what really happened that night. No. The word came sharp and immediate. Marcus, don't. Whatever you think you need to tell me, don't. He closed his eyes as another helicopter passed overhead. Someone's trying to kill me, Sarah. They want to make sure the truth stays buried. But if I die today? The truth? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. The truth is that my brother has been in therapy for 15 years. The truth is that he finally got clean, got married, has a little girl who thinks her daddy hung the moon. The truth is that some secrets are meant to stay buried. Marcus felt the blood seeping through his bandage, warm against his fingers. You knew. I've always known. Her voice broke slightly. You think I'm stupid, Marcus? You think I believed for 1 second that you killed those people in cold blood? You were the kindest man I ever met. You once spent 3 hours getting a kitten out of a storm drain because some little girl was crying. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Sarah had been 17, working part-time at the animal shelter. The kitten had belonged to her favorite volunteer, a gap-toothed kid who came by every Saturday to read to the dogs. Then why didn't you? Because Danny was 18 and terrified and confessed everything to me the night it happened. Her voice steadied, but Marcus could hear the cost of that control, because he was high out of his mind and following those older boys around like a puppy, trying to impress them. Because when Jerry Hoffman called Dad and said they had it handled, that someone would take the fall and Danny would walk away clean, I begged Dad to let it happen. Marcus leaned back against the barn wall, feeling the weight of 15 years pressing down on him. All those nights in prison, telling himself he was protecting an innocent girl from the truth about her brother. She'd known everything. I was 23 years old, Sarah continued, and my baby brother was going to go to prison forever for something that started as a stupid prank. You want to know the truth, Marcus? The truth is that I was a coward. The truth is that I let a good man sacrifice his life for my family, and I've lived with that guilt every single day since. A searchlight swept past the barn, close enough that Marcus could feel its heat through the wooden slats. He pressed deeper into shadow. Sarah, there's video footage. Someone filmed everything that night. If they get their hands on it, then Danny's daughter grows up visiting her father in prison, and my marriage ends because I've been lying to my husband for 15 years. and my students lose their teacher because I'll be too destroyed to function." Her voice turned fierce. "Is that the justice you want, Marcus? You want to destroy 3 generations because you finally found a way to clear your name?" Through a gap in the barn wall, Marcus watched tactical teams moving across his property like black ants, professional, coordinated. Someone had paid serious money to make this problem disappear. "They're going to kill me," he said quietly. Sarah was crying now. He could hear her trying to muffle the sound. "I know. God help me, I know. And I also know that if you wanted to destroy my family, you would have done it 15 years ago. You didn't call me to ask permission, Marcus. You called to say goodbye." She was right. Even now, bleeding and surrounded, Marcus couldn't bring himself to burn down the life she'd built. Sarah Matthews taught 3rd grade and coached Little League. Her daughter Emma played violin and wanted to be a veterinarian. Her son Jake collected baseball cards and built model airplanes with his father on Sunday afternoons. Danny Brennan owned a small construction company and sponsored a youth football team. He'd been sober for 12 years and coached his daughter's soccer team. All of it built on Marcus Kane's silence. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for all of it. For not being stronger. Marcus." He hung up and turned off the phone. "Tomorrow's revelation will shatter everything you think you know about that desert night." Marcus sat in the gathering shadows of his barn, staring at the dark phone in his hands. Sarah's tears still echoed in his ears, mixing with the distant drone of helicopters circling like vultures. He'd made his choice 15 years ago, and he'd made it again today. Some burdens were meant to be carried alone, but the desert had other plans. A sound cut through the helicopter noise, something that didn't belong. Marcus tilted his head, straining to listen. There it was again, an engine getting closer. Not a sheriff's department vehicle. He knew their sounds by heart after years of paranoid listening. This was different, older. A truck, maybe, with a bad exhaust system and transmission that needed work. The engine stopped somewhere near his front gate. Marcus gripped his rifle tighter and crawled toward the barn's side window. Through the grimy glass, he could make out headlights cutting across his driveway, a beat-up Ford pickup, rust-eaten and listing to one side. The driver's door opened with a protesting squeal. A woman stepped out. Even in the dim light, Marcus recognized her immediately. The recognition hit him like a physical blow, sending 15 years of careful emotional control crashing down around him. It was impossible. She was supposed to be dead. Lisa Hoffman walked toward his house with the same confident stride she'd possessed at 25, when she'd been Jerry Hoffman's assistant and the only person in Hollywood who'd treated Marcus like a human being instead of a stunt prop. Her dark hair was shorter now, streaked with silver, and her face carried lines that spoke of hard years. But it was undeniably her, Lisa Hoffman, who'd been in the desert that October night. Lisa Hoffman, who'd screamed when the killing started. Lisa Hoffman, whose body was supposedly buried in an unmarked grave outside Las Vegas, another victim of Jerry's cleaning crew. She carried something in her hands, a manila envelope, thick with contents. Marcus felt his world tilt sideways. If Lisa was alive, if she'd been alive all these years, then everything he thought he knew about that night was wrong. The official story, Danny's confession, even Sarah's guilt-ridden version of events, all of it built on a foundation of lies. Lisa reached his front porch and stopped. She didn't knock. Instead, she set the envelope down on his doormat and stepped back. When she spoke, her voice carried across the desert air with startling clarity. "I know you're watching, Marcus. I know you're hurt and running out of time." She paused, looking directly at the barn. "I also know you've been protecting the wrong person for 15 years. The helicopters were circling back, searchlights beginning to sweep toward the front of the property. Lisa didn't seem concerned. She stood in the open, illuminated by her truck's headlights, like someone with nothing left to lose. "Jerry didn't write that letter because he was dying," she called out. "He wrote it because I've been hunting him for 15 years, getting closer every year, and he knew I'd finally found proof of what really happened. The cancer was convenient timing, saved me the trouble of killing him myself." Marcus's hands were shaking. The blood loss was getting worse, but it wasn't just that. The careful walls he'd built around his memories were crumbling. If Lisa was alive, if she'd been hunting Jerry, then she'd known Marcus was innocent. She'd known, and she'd let him rot in prison for 8 years. Danny Brennan didn't kill anyone that night, Lisa continued. He was too high to kill a spider, let alone 3 people. And Jerry didn't kill them either, though he tried to take credit in that pathetic confession letter. She laughed, and the sound was brittle as desert wind. You want to know who really butchered those boys, Marcus? Who carved them up like cattle while you were tied to that tree, helpless and screaming? A searchlight caught Lisa in its beam. She raised her hand to shield her eyes but didn't move. It was me. Her words cut through the night like glass. I killed them, all 3. And I let you take the blame because I needed time to disappear, time to plan, time to make Jerry pay for what he'd done to both of us. Marcus couldn't breathe. The rifle slipped from nerveless fingers. 15 years of protecting Danny Brennan. 15 years of carrying guilt that didn't belong to him. 15 years of exile and punishment for murders committed by a woman he'd once considered a friend. The envelope contains proof, Lisa shouted over the approaching helicopters. Video footage, financial records, testimony from Jerry's other victims. Everything you need to clear your name and destroy mine. She was backing toward her truck now. But there's a catch, Marcus. There's always a catch. The searchlight followed her movement. Tactical teams would be closing in within minutes. I'm not here to confess, Lisa called out, her voice growing fainter as she reached the truck. I'm here to finish what I started. Jerry's dead, but his network is still active, still covering up, still killing witnesses. You were supposed to die quiet and forgotten, Marcus. But now you know the truth. She climbed into the truck and gunned the engine. Now you have to choose what to do with it. The truck's taillights disappeared into the darkness, leaving Marcus alone with the weight of Lisa's words and the approaching thunder of helicopters. He crawled toward his front porch, each movement sending fresh pain through his shoulder. The manila envelope lay where she'd left it, thick and promising and dangerous as a rattlesnake. Marcus grabbed it and stumbled back toward the barn as searchlights swept across his yard. His hands shook as he tore open the envelope. Inside, photographs, documents, and a single USB drive. The top photo showed 3 young men, faces frozen in expressions of terror and pain. Below that, financial records with Jerry Hoffman's signature, bank transfers, payoffs, a network of silence bought and paid for. But it was the final document that made his blood run cold. A list of names, witnesses who'd been eliminated over the years. Marcus recognized several from the Hollywood gossip mill. Accidents, suicides, overdoses, all people who might have known too much about Jerry Hoffman's desert games. At the bottom of the list, in fresh ink, Marcus Kane, Priority 1, active termination authorized. Someone had been planning his death for months. The radio in his pocket crackled. All units converge on the barn. Suspect is cornered. Marcus pocketed the USB drive and scattered the papers. No time to process everything Lisa had revealed. No time to absorb the truth that he'd protected Danny Brennan from crimes he'd never committed. Right now, survival trumped understanding. He slipped out the barn's back door and into the maze of Joshua trees that marked his property's eastern boundary. The desert night was cold against his face, and each step sent blood seeping through his makeshift bandage. Behind him, tactical teams surrounded the barn with military precision. His phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number, the old mine shaft. Come alone, time to talk. Marcus stared at the screen. Nobody knew about the mine shaft except locals who'd grown up in these hills. It was an abandoned silver claim from the 1890s, hidden in a ravine half a mile from his house. Kids used to dare each other to explore it back when there were still kids in this part of Nevada. Another text, I have answers you need, about who's really hunting you. Marcus looked back toward his barn. Flashlight beams danced through the windows as the tactical team cleared the building. Soon they'd discover he wasn't inside. Soon they'd expand the search perimeter. He had maybe 20 minutes before they found his blood trail. The smart move was to keep running. Head for the highway, steal a car, disappear into the anonymous sprawl of Las Vegas. Start over somewhere else with whatever money he could access. Live quietly until Lisa's evidence surfaced and cleared his name posthumously. But Marcus had spent 15 years making the smart move. 15 years of keeping his head down and his mouth shut. 15 years of carrying other people's guilt while the real killer walked free and innocent families destroyed themselves with misplaced shame. He was tired of being smart. The mine shaft lay in a dry creek bed that had once carried snowmelt from distant mountains. Marcus approached carefully, rifle ready, senses straining for any sign of ambush. The entrance was a black mouth in the hillside, shored up with rotting timber that probably hadn't been safe when Teddy Roosevelt was president. A figure emerged from the shadows. Not Lisa this time. A man Marcus didn't recognize, tall, lean, wearing expensive clothes that looked out of place in the desert. His hands were empty, but his posture screamed professional danger. "Mr. Kane." The man's voice carried a slight accent. "Eastern European, maybe Russian. We need to discuss your future." Marcus kept the rifle trained on the stranger's chest. "Don't have much of a future, seems like." "That depends entirely on your next decision." The man smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "My employers have invested considerable resources in maintaining certain arrangements that have kept this desert quiet for 15 years. Lisa Hoffman's dramatic revelation threatens those arrangements." "Your employers?" "People who prefer anonymity. People who financed Jerry Hoffman's film projects and expected certain services in return. People who are not pleased to learn their investment has been compromised by a dead man's guilty conscience." Marcus's radio crackled with search updates. The tactical teams were expanding their perimeter, moving methodically through the Joshua trees. Professional hunters closing in on wounded prey. The stranger checked his watch. "You have approximately 15 minutes before Sheriff Brennan's people find you. I can make them go away with a single phone call. I can also ensure that Lisa Hoffman's evidence never sees daylight. All you have to do is walk away, disappear, let the dead stay buried. And if I refuse?" The man's smile widened. "Then you'll discover that some secrets are worth killing for, and that the people who've kept this quiet for 15 years have no intention of stopping now." In the distance, Marcus heard helicopters changing position, searchlights probing closer. Time was running out, and he still didn't know who he could trust.